dealership put the wheels on too tight. Well, so you may remember a couple weeks ago I was doing some work on the Sprinter van because I had a check engine light that was on and it was ready for its state inspection, and of course check engine light will cause it to fail the inspection. So I got that taken care of and everything seemed good, so I took it in for the inspection and they still failed me because they claim my my front struts are worn out. So today we're gonna take care of that. It doesn't seem too bad, but it may be the other one they're complaining about. I suppose there's maybe some play in it. Let's see about getting that taken care of. Now, one thing you'll note on this is it's a little easier than a lot of strutted vehicles. Most of the time when you have a strut suspension, the spring is part of the strut assembly, so you need a spring compressor to do it. The nice thing about this is the spring is separate. I believe it's a torsion bar. Yeah, it's got to be a torsion bar. I don't see anything else in there. Don't have to worry about a spring compressor, and it should be a simple matter of unbolting the strut and putting the new one in. I do have to worry a little bit about alignment. It'll obviously have to be realigned after this, but I'll show you how we can try to make that line up as well as possible. So I've got the wheel off, which was a little bit of a challenge. The lug bolts were a little snug, but the bigger impact wrench took care of it. And so let's see about getting it taken apart. So I've cleaned things up a little bit so you can see what's going on. And if you look closely here, we've got, the lighting's not real good. Let me get out of the light. We've got, essentially there's only 2 bolts and a nut that holds the whole thing in. So we've got one through bolt here. There's another one down lower. And then at the very top, actually inside the vehicle, there's a nut that's on the inside of the cabin that it's the top of the shaft of the strut itself. So those 3 things. I also got to get this clip. There's some like the ABS wire and such are connected or supported here. I got to pull that off. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Now, as I mentioned, this will mess the alignment up a little bit. These 2 bolts here, however, are how the alignment is set. These are not normal bolts. They're actually kind of offset, which you'll see when they come out. Now, there's no way to do this and make sure the alignment's perfect afterwards. But if I put a mark on each one of these, I can tell what direction they're pointing now. If I put them in the same place, we should be close enough that when it comes back together, we should have a reasonably decent alignment so that it's at least good enough to drive it to the shop to where somebody can align it for me. So I'm just going to put an arrow pointing straight towards the outside of the vehicle on both of them. Show you what I've got here. So an arrow, and a dot. And we should have a reasonable chance of having the alignment not too far off when we go back together. So I'm going to pull those 2 bolts out, and it should be loose from the steering knuckle then. So I've got the bolts loosened up. Now here, if you take a closer look, you can see I've got the bolt back a little bit and the nut is off, but both are still in place. One thing I'm not sure about, how I mentioned that there's no spring compressor to worry about on the strut itself, but I'm not sure how much tension there's going to be on the torsion bars now. So what I'm going to do is I've got a small bottle jack. I'm going to stick this under the control arm just so I can control that and it doesn't come flying loose when the bolts come out. Not sure if you'll be able to see this, but we'll set up the little camera. You can see what I'm doing. So bottle jack, I'm going to get a little bit closer. There's a small indentation under here on the control arm, which should prevent it from slipping. There, just enough so that I know that's not going to come flying off when the bolts come out. In fact, I can feel it's a lot of tension off the bolts. I can actually turn them by hand now. So actually, before I pull those out, I think the next thing is go inside the vehicle and at least loosen the nut on the top of the strut. So here inside the vehicle, this is the passenger footwell. Let me back up to give you context. So just passenger footwell. We have this compartment where the jack is and the tire iron are stored. So simple little turn that, it pops out. This cover comes off. And inside here we've got the jack and the tire iron. And right here, you can see we have the top of the strut. And so there's a socket there for a hex key in the top to keep it from turning, and whatever size wrench that is. So I don't think I can hold the camera while I do that, but that's easy enough to see. Now, normally, once again, if you're used to doing other typical strut suspension, you would think that you would need to take these bolts out around the strut mount. But since there's no spring as part of the strut, all you have to do is take that nut off and it should come right out. Well, I've got that nut on the inside of the vehicle taken out, so that's completely loose on that side. These bolts are pretty much loose, so I should be able to just back them out the rest of the way and the strut should just fall right out. Fingers crossed. There's the lower bolt. And there it is. Now I need to be very careful because I'm right inside all the wires for the anti-lock brakes and such, and obviously I don't want to damage those. All right, I probably should have disconnected those sensors to start with, so I had a little more slack to deal with. All right, so I've gotten myself into a little bit of a bind here. I'm actually putting a lot of tension on the brake line, which I really don't want to do. And the anti-lock brake wires, which I really don't want to destroy those either. So I'm going to leave the camera rolling, and we'll edit some of this out so you don't have to watch me fumbling, and I'll let you know how it goes. All right, so I've got it wedged back in place. That was kind of a mistake. Okay, and this is why I show things live on camera, and I like to show you when I screw up, because I figure you can learn from my mistakes. All right, let's take a closer look at where my problem was. So here you can see I'm still supported just with the screwdriver. So there's this pair of wires for the ABS sensors that comes in, and it actually loops around the back of the strut, and one sensor comes in right here. Get that in there where you can see it. I don't know if you can see with the lighting in there. And the other one goes in to the brake caliper over here. Well, I spent a fair bit of time off camera fiddling with things, and I finally came up with what now seems like an obvious solution, but they always do once you get there. I simply pulled the brake caliper off. I was thinking about taking the brake line off. Of course, I'd have to re-bleed the brakes, which wouldn't be that big a deal, but seems unnecessary. Then I realized, why not just unbolt the caliper and hang it out of the way? So, and also this gives me a chance to really check my brake pads, which look absolutely wonderful. Let me turn on my little camera here, and I can show you what we've got here. So, brake calipers out of the way. I've got just a piece of wire here that I'm holding that up so it's not putting tension. Now, you should never hang the caliper just from the brake hose, because that can damage the hose. That second wire that I thought was part of the ABS is actually a pad level sensor. You can see that that goes into the pad. I wasn't aware that we had those on this vehicle. And so now I should be able, I've still got my screwdriver temporarily holding that in place. I've got the wheel turned all the way to the right, so I've got hopefully enough room to just pop this thing out of here. Let's see how this works. So now, when I pull my screwdriver out, it's just got to be wedged in there. I don't have to worry as much about this. There's just the one brake sensor, and there's more than enough slack on it. Oh, that gives me a lot more room to work with. So I'm still stuck in the rubber. Oh, and it's out. Okay, that was a little tougher than I thought it would be, but honestly not that bad. Now the trick is getting the new one in. So now that the old strut's out of the way, it's just a simple matter of wrestling this new one in its place. Don't forget the dust boot doesn't come with it. You got to reuse the old one. It just slides over the top. And now I just need to wrestle it up through the top. I did put a little bit of grease on the shaft just so it slides through. There's a metal bushing in that upper mount, but it's rubber mounted outside there. So you got to kind of flex it slightly. And, it slid in better than I thought it would. So now it's just a matter of maybe another little wrestling match here of trying to get this strut lined up with it. One thing I did notice earlier, remember how I took care to mark which bolt was which and what direction they were pointing? It does not, the camber adjustment clearly does not work the way I thought it would. A lot of times you have an offset bolt, so that depending on which direction it's pointing, that adjusts the camber in and out. On this, there's a slot in the strut, and the bolt fits solid in the upright here. So I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to line this up halfway decent. It's probably going to be way out of alignment when I'm done, but it really just needs to get from here to the shop where they're going to do my inspection, and I'm going to have them do the alignment as well. So now, just another little wrestling match. To try to line this up. Come on, get in there. Big screwdrivers are very handy for stuff like this. There we go. Get that lined up to where I can get a bolt in there. And if I run that bolt in with the impact, there we go. Now we're at least loosely in place. And my other bolt. That wasn't as bad as I thought. So now for the camber adjustment, it looks like it's just a matter of where this upper bolt is when you tighten it. I suppose I could take a measurement. I can see the marks on my old, if we look at the old strut here, you can kind of see the outline of where it was. I think maybe I could take a measurement to see how far off the bolt is from some known point, but I think I'm probably just gonna get it somewhere in the middle, good enough to get it to the shop. So one additional thing I did discover is with this all the way down, the strut doesn't actually come all the way up to where I can put the threads on. So if you recall, I did have my my bottle jack down here. I am going to need to jack it up a little bit so that I can, that should be enough. So the bottle jack was required. So I've got the bolts in just partly snugged up, and I wanted to show before I finish tightening things. You can see, and actually if I loosen it up I get even more. You can see we've got a degree or two of camber adjustment there. My plan is, from looking at the where the marks were on the old one, somewhere in the middle is where I want it. So I'm going to try to hold it as close to the middle as I can, tighten it up, and like I said, shouldn't wear tires out too bad in the few miles I've got to drive it before I get it inspected. Put it right there. Well, that pretty much wraps up this, at least this side of the project. I've got to do the other side still, but that's going to be the same thing, so no sense recording both of them. The spot inside the vehicle, I'm not sure exactly what panel I've got to remove to find the top of the strut, but that should be obviously enough to you. So the things I learned that I wish I had known before are remove the brake caliper and get it out of the way. That makes things much easier, because then you don't have to worry about the brake line being in the way, and it gives you much more flexibility. You don't need to disconnect the ABS sensors, but popping them out of the little clips that hold them in place gives you a lot more room to work. As far as camber, what would have been ideal actually is if I had a digital protractor, I could have put it on the hub, seen what it was with the suspension in full droop like it is now, seen what it is now, and then verify I had the same thing afterwards, but I'm not too worried about that. Hopefully you found this useful. As usual, I screwed a little bit of it up myself, but that's why I film these, is so you can learn from my mistakes. So if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. I'll continue. I've got some other projects. I've got some maintenance stuff I need to do on this. I'll probably shoot some videos of that. And of course, I'll get back on my Datsun 510 racer project soon. And who knows what else. I got all kinds of ideas of things I'd like to do. Just a matter of having the time to do them. So until then, you take it easy. I'm going to wrap up the other side.